The boy could dream the exact score of a football match, even down to which player would score each goal.
I had a dream. Liverpool 1-0 in the semi.
1-0? Really?
It's Garcia scoring.
After saying it out loud, even the boy thought it sounded utterly absurd, but his father told him to believe in himself. Then he took his son to the pub, pulled out the last £100 from his wallet, and bet on Liverpool to win, with the obscure Garcia scoring the goal. Everyone thought the father and son were fools, because Liverpool's recent form had been abysmal. The odds for a win were as high as 11-1. Chelsea, on the other hand, were unstoppable. Any normal person would put their money on Chelsea, but to everyone's surprise, a week later, in the Champions League semi-final, Liverpool really did beat Chelsea 1-0, and the goal scorer was indeed Garcia. The father and son beamed with joy, but what made them even happier than the hefty winnings was that their beloved Liverpool, after 20 years, had made it back to the Champions League final, where they would face the star-studded AC Milan for the title. The father and son decided to go to Istanbul to witness this historic match, but in truth, this was the first time Will had ever spent time with his father, as far back as he could remember. He had grown up with his mother in the far south of England, while his father had been working up north in Liverpool. For years earlier, his mother had passed away from illness, and Will had been sent to an orphanage run by nuns. During that time, his father would often send Liverpool posters and magazines back, which became the only connection between father and son. Over time, this boy from the south had become a devoted fan of the northern club, Liverpool. Now, his father had finally saved enough money. He couldn't wait to rush to the orphanage to bring Will to Liverpool for a new life. Though they hadn't seen each other in years, they weren't distant. Will had imagined all kinds of happy moments with his father, and had drawn them all in his notebook. When his father saw the drawings, his eyes instantly reddened. To keep from crying, he started telling Will about Liverpool's history, only to find that Will knew even more than he did.
172 goals for Liverpool.
Is that right?
3 European Cups, 6 League Championships, 2 FA Cups, 4 League Cups, 1 double and 1 treble.
When was the double?
1986.
Still, Will looked up at his father with admiration. Perhaps in every child's heart, their father is an invincible superhero. His father went on telling him about his experiences in Liverpool, including the stories of Dalglish and Gerrard. But as he spoke, his voice choked up. How he wishes he could be like Dalglish, with feet that can turn the tide of the game, so he could always stay by his son's side. But the time they had lost could never be regained. To make up for the fatherly love his son had missed, he took Will out to play football, took him to see the big tree his late wife had loved, and sat on it with him, singing silly nursery rhymes over and over without a hint of impatience. Will felt this was the happiest time of his life, and what thrilled him even more was that his father was going to take him to Istanbul to watch the Champions League final. Will snuggled happily in his father's arms, singing Liverpool's anthem, "You'll Never Walk Alone." But fate always has a cruel way of playing tricks. This brief time together would be Will's last with his father. The next day after school, all the other kids went out to play in groups, but Will sat outside the classroom, drawing as he waited for his father to pick him up. But as time slowly passed, his father never showed up. Will's cheerful mood gradually turned anxious. After what felt like forever, a black car pulled up at the orphanage. Will rushed over full of hope, but his father wasn't there. Only the pub owner got out of the car. The owner walked straight into the office. Seeing the nun's shocked and sorrowful expression, Will's heart immediately leaped into his throat. He ran out of the orphanage instantly, and sprinted desperately toward the pub where his father had been staying. But when he opened the door, his father still wasn't there. Will could only lie quietly on his side on the bed, as if leaning against his father, quietly savoring the warmth that had not yet faded. Then the pub owner returned and told Will the truth. His father had suffered a cerebral hemorrhage. Efforts to save him had failed, and he had passed away. The news hit Will like a thunderbolt, leaving him helpless and despairing. He couldn't believe that the father who had been by his side just yesterday was gone today. Now he was truly an orphan. The pub owner handed over his father's belongings, a wallet, a drawing, and 2 match tickets. But without his father, how could he possibly go to that dream Champions League final? Will begged the owner to take him, but the owner had prior commitments on match day. To keep Will from running off on his own, the nun confiscated the 2 tickets, telling Will she'd give them back only when he found someone to take him to the game. But this was Will's dream. He felt utterly frustrated that he couldn't make it happen himself. Back in his dorm, he could no longer hold back his emotions. He tore down all the posters and his father's portrait from the wall. He had promised to stay with him forever, and that they would go watch Liverpool's final together. But now his father had left him behind. Seeing how heartbroken Will was, his friends helped him devise an escape plan. First, he had to cross the English Channel to reach France, then pass through 6 more countries, and finally arrive at his destination, Turkey. But there were only 7 days left until the match. Will had to act fast. Step 1 was to get the tickets. Will and his friends snuck into the storage room. After searching around, Will found the tickets in the hand of a statue. The nun had thought the most obvious place would be the safest, but she underestimated a child's sharp eye. But tickets alone weren't enough. There was no way he could travel far without money. So Will remembered the £1,100 he'd won earlier. He snuck out of the orphanage and headed straight for the pub, but the pub owner saw right through him. For Will's safety, he refused to hand over the money, and sternly scolded him for running away from the orphanage. But Will was resolute. That money was rightfully his. The owner made an excuse to go inside and get the cash, but secretly called the orphanage to tip them off. Just then, a waitress walked in, set the day's earnings on the counter, and left. Quick thinking, Will took his £1,100 from the pile, and set off alone on his journey to Istanbul. Following his planned route, Will went straight to the harbor. Under the cover of night, he snuck into the cargo hold of a truck and boarded a freighter bound for France. When the morning sun streamed into the compartment, he had already reached France. Will walked up to a fruit stand and met a kind couple who not only gave him fruit but also patiently pointed him in the right direction. They told him about a driver named Eric who went to the Paris train station every day. He could probably give him a ride. So Will lied and said his father was waiting for him at the Paris train station and managed to get into Eric's car. The kind-hearted Eric didn't think twice. Along the way, he reminded Will to keep his things safe. But the moment he stepped out of the car, Will forgot Eric's advice completely. Having never traveled far from home, Will had no idea how dangerous people could be, and even less about the rule of keeping your money hidden. Starving, he bought some food, but before he could take a single bite, two thugs snatched it, along with his wallet. Will ran after them with everything he had, until they reached a river, where the thugs stopped. Will begged them to at least give back the wallet after taking the money, because it held the only photo of his father. But clearly he had overestimated their decency. They sneered at him, then tossed the wallet into the river. Watching the wallet drift away with the current, Will was filled with despair. At that moment, he was like a stray dog with no home. Will sat alone on a bench by the street, lost and helpless. Then a man approached him. Will instinctively clutched his bag. He had learned to be cautious, but the man meant no harm. He was a friend of Eric's. He had seen Will riding with Eric earlier, and assumed they were related. After hearing what had happened, he took Will to Eric's place. Seeing the boy back again, Eric was confused, but he let him stay anyway, and prepared a hearty turkey dinner for him. At the table, Will admitted he was going to Istanbul to watch the Champions League final, and told him about his miserable experience in Paris. It moved Eric and the landlord to pity. To encourage Will to move on from his pain, the two of them struck up a conversation about football. When they talked about Liverpool, Will's eyes lit up again. Then the landlord pulled out a photo of a footballer, and Will recognized Zidane instantly.
Zidane scored twice for France in the World Cup final against Brazil.
Their shared passion brought the three of them closer. In every football fan's eyes, football is not just a sport, it's a way of life and a pillar of the soul. The next morning, Will pulled out his Champions League final tickets and invited Eric to go with him. Only then did Eric realize that Will's father was not in Paris, but no matter how much he pressed, Will just stared down in silence.
I asked you a last time, where is your father?
He died. I ran away from school because they weren't going to let me go.
Will's tears touched the softest part of Eric's heart. He pulled Will into his arms to comfort him, but when Eric went to verify the tickets, he discovered that Will's father had bought fakes. When Will saw that, he thought Eric was trying to sell the tickets. He snatched them back and yelled at Eric, then prepared to flee. Worried about Will's safety, Eric immediately ran after him, but just as he turned the corner, a huge truck came barreling toward them. Terror filled Eric's eyes. Thankfully, Will was incredibly lucky. The truck stopped just 5 centimeters short of him, though Will had dodged disaster. The fake tickets meant his dream was shattered. Eric was ready to take Will back to England, but then the landlord stepped up. He took out his savings of £9,000 and urged Eric to use it to buy real tickets and take Will to Istanbul. Eric couldn't understand why he would do that. The landlord said earnestly, "If you can't use money to make a dream come true, then what's the point of having it?" His words shook Eric's resolve, and what Will said next made Eric completely drop the idea of sending him back.
Everything's fake. The tickets are fake. My dad's a fake. Sister Carmel. The whole bloody mess of them. The whole bloody world's a pack of fakes and lies.
By now, Will had lost all hope. Eric couldn't bear to see a child lose their faith. He decided right then to take Will to fulfill his dream. The landlord was deeply relieved. Not only did he fund their tickets, but he also gave them money for the journey, and even lent them his beloved car. And so, Will set off once again on his dream journey, this time with Eric by his side. The trip was filled with laughter and joy. Along the way, they even ran into a bus full of Liverpool fans. Their shared passion brought them together instantly. If you love Liverpool, then we're family. While stocking up at a rest stop, they happened to cross paths again. With his deep knowledge of Liverpool's history, Will quickly won the fans' admiration. After a lively chat, everyone was blown away by Will's knowledge. They not only crowned him Liverpool's #1 fan, but also spread his story far and wide. TV stations around the world picked it up, and Will suddenly became famous. And so, they watched the stars and chatted at night, and traveled by day. After passing through city after city, they finally made it to Istanbul just before the final. The place was already buzzing, inside and outside the stadium. It was an endless sea of red, but the two of them were worried about not being able to get tickets. They finally spotted a ticket scalper, but when they asked the price, they were stunned. With limited tickets available, prices had been jacked up to £12,000 each. They only had £9,000, not even enough for one ticket. Luckily, the fans they'd met on the road heard they couldn't afford the tickets, and chipped in their own money to help. But the scalper only had one ticket left, meaning Eric wouldn't be able to get into the stadium. Will was devastated. Without Eric's help, he never would have made it this far. If Eric couldn't go in, then he didn't want to go in either. But Eric was willing to wait outside. The two were at an impasse. Then a voice came from beside them. Will immediately recognized Dalglish. It turned out that Will's journey across 7 countries had made headlines all over Liverpool too. Hearing they were still one ticket short, Dalglish handed Will his own staff pass. Now they could both enter the stadium together. Accompanied by Dalglish, Will gave an interview to the TV station. His classmates were thrilled in front of the TV, and even the nun, seeing that Will was safe, finally breathed a sigh of relief. Then Dalglish took them to the inner field and told Will that he would be walking out as the honorary captain of the fans. And so, as if in a dream, Will wobbled his way toward the pitch. He looked up carefully at every player, afraid that all of this might be an illusion. When Carragher encouraged him to keep going, Will finally knew it was real. Then he walked up to Gerrard.
So glad you made it, my friend. Go on, that's the way ahead now.
Amid the roaring cheers of the fans, Will seemed to see his father standing ahead, waiting for him.
Now go on, son. It's time.
Then Will ran onto the pitch, charging toward the final stretch of his dream journey. He reached the center of the stadium, spread his arms wide, and listened to the whole stadium singing Liverpool's anthem, "You'll Never Walk Alone." If youth is still here, don't waste it. If youth has passed, never stop moving forward. Just like this much anticipated final, though Liverpool went down by 3 goals in the first half, the players never gave up. In the second half, led by captain Gerrard, Liverpool fought back to score 3 goals, and won 3-2 on penalties against AC Milan, pulling off an incredible, miraculous comeback. It became the greatest final in Champions League history, forever remembered by fans as the Miracle of Istanbul.